Welcome everybody to the Paonia Town Trustee Forum. We have 4 candidates here tonight, and we'll introduce them here in a second. My name is Dennis Anderson. I'm the publisher of the Delta County Independent, and I want to acknowledge some folks here first. First of all, our managing editor, Lucas Vader, who's been doing all the heavy lifting and putting these together for us. This is our 3rd forum. We did Cedar Ridge first, then Hotchkiss, and then here, and Delta will be Monday, right? Next Monday?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you to the town of Paonia for allowing us the use of this facility. And we have a nice crowd tonight, so thank you to all the community members for coming out tonight. Appreciate you being here. We want to thank the candidates for putting themselves out for the community, to serve your community. We got 4 spots. 4 candidates and 1 write-in candidate. So however it turns out, we appreciate your willingness to serve. Okay, so we have the candidates from on the left is Paige Smith, who's running for mayor. She's uncontested. And then the 3 trustees that are here tonight is we have Walter Check, Bill Bruner, and Kathy Schwartz. And Linda McCone is out of the country, right, Lucas? She's a write-in candidate. She couldn't be here tonight, but we have to move forward. Politics doesn't slow down for anybody. So we have some ground rules. We're streaming this. First of all, I should say we're streaming this on the DCI website, YouTube, Facebook, and you can also pick it up through the DCI app. A little shameless plug: stay up to date with all the latest Delta County news. Go to your app store and download the Delta County Independent app. The rules. Candidates will have up to 2 minutes for opening statements. Candidates will have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. We have 7 questions. Each candidate will be allowed 1 minute for a closing statement. This is a forum, not a debate. Please allow candidates their time uninterrupted, and there will be no rebuttals. Okay, so let's start with introduction, and Paige Smith.
All right, thank you. My name is Paige Smith, and I'm running unopposed as mayor. And one of my goals is to make it so that people want to run for these offices, because I don't necessarily want to be running unopposed, but I am. So I'm honored to know that I'm going to be mayor, and I appreciate the DCI giving us the opportunity for this forum. And just a little bit about myself. I lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming for the previous 35 years and worked for the state of Wyoming as a public servant. Because of that, I take public service very seriously. And my husband and I bought our property here in Paonia back in 2009. And then we moved here permanently in 2019 once he and I both retired. So when I got here, I became quite involved with the town, and honestly, I came to every town meeting as a citizen. Sometime early in 2020, I was appointed as a trustee in December of 21, and then had to run for election later in 22. So I was elected. Again, there were as many seats as there were openings, so there was no campaigning necessary. So I've been involved with the town approximately, going on 4 years. And I'm happy to be mayor because, having been a trustee and seeing some of the changes we've had in the last 4 years, we are at a point now where we are in great shape. We have a very talented, trained administrator. Our staff is very well trained, good folks, and dedicated. We've made sure as trustees that people are being paid competitive wages. And I just think it's important to continue this momentum, which is why I'm happy to be in a different position as mayor, which I don't know everything I'm gonna have to do as mayor, honestly, but I do know that I will be heavily involved in agenda setting for the 2 meetings that we have every month, and I'll have an opportunity to see what's going on and what is coming to the public, and be sure that the public is getting all the information they need in those agenda packets. Is one of my major goals. So I will leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Walter?
I'm Walter Check. I'm a Colorado native. Moved to Paonia about 10 years ago, and I was involved in minimally in politics in Denver. Attended to city council meetings, worked on ballot initiatives, and think that I'm a fan of democracy, and I think democracy is more than just voting every few years. if you really want it to work, you have to believe in it and work and contribute, like I said, more than just voting every couple of years. And that's one of the reasons I decided I would put myself forward as a candidate for the city town council.
Thank you.
Well, I agree with Walter. Democracy is something we have to work for. So I started visiting the North Fork back in the early 70s, about 72 or 73. We moved here in 77. And when I see the young people here now, they look like my friends back then when I was young. I envy their hope and vitality. And if elected, I will do my best to get some of them to run for this board at the next election. I first served on this board in the 90s. A water moratorium, I got that board to pass in a very dry year, was the trigger for the next board to do a water study to refute the idea that we were short on water. And it said, guess what, we're about sold out. And they didn't like that, so they commissioned another one in 2004. This said the same thing. I was elected again in 2016. I resigned that term in protest over employee abuse and a cover-up. The town sued me to keep me quiet and drug it out in court for almost a year. They lost. I don't take much that comes out of town hall at face value. I'm very excited that Paige is going to be our mayor. I think she's going to be a very good mayor. But I am a little concerned about the like-thinkingness of the board that will likely continue. Even if I'm there, I'm going to be odd man out. So you want to be careful about how like-minded your trustees are, I believe. I've been watching this town council since they used to hire spray planes to dump carcinogenic ag chemicals on the river to kill mosquitoes and coincidentally dump it on my garden. Back then, their main focus, though, was to keep the town expenses at the lowest possible, just to keep prices low for people. There wasn't much money here then. And I don't think there's enough emphasis on that coming from the board these days.
Okay, Ben.
Okay. All right, yeah.
Hello, Paonia, both people watching online and people in the audience. My name is Kathy Swartz, and I am running for town trustee. So I was appointed in September of 2023 as trustee, so I applied after trustee Markle resigned. And I've been considering for a while, like, I really want to use my skills and contribute to town. And it felt like I had space in my life, so I put my application in, and then the board selected me. Granted, I was the only person at that time to run, but they selected me to be town trustee. And it's been, my intention was when I applied was that I would hopefully run for another 4 years. So that's my intention, is to serve for another 4 years. I've been in Paonia since 2006. I originally am from Ohio, and I know a lot of you in town. I was the executive director at Solar Energy International for over 9 years. Our SEI was and is one of the largest nonprofits in the area. We would bring about 1,000 people, about 600 people each year to the town. So really contributed a lot to the local economy. And since that time, so I resigned a few years ago to take a long sabbatical. I've worked at Western Slope Conservation Center as their interim executive director, and I've worked at many of the food establishments here in Paonia. My heart is in Paonia. And I think service is in my blood. I currently serve on the board of SEI and also the board of Western Slope Conservation Center. And I really look forward to continuing the momentum that we have here on town council. I'm really stoked with the staff that we have. It seems like with all the grants that are coming in, we are headed in the right direction, and I want to be part of that. The one thing about me, if you know me at all, there's a few things you should know about me. One is that I'm very...
So you have time. Go ahead.
Perfect.
Finish
Okay,
your
I'll
thought.
finish my thought. I'm very much consensus driven. And two, I'm never afraid to, if something doesn't feel right, I will always speak my mind.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kathy. Okay, so now we're gonna go on to the question phase of the forum. Again, you get 2 minutes to answer. We'll start again left to right from page on over. And I'll read the question and then I'll read it twice, but if you need me to read it again, feel free to stop me and ask me, we'll do it.
So I'm first.
You're first.
Okay.
Yes. So what are your 3 priority goals for the town if you are elected? What are your 3 priority goals for the town if you are elected? And if you can't hear me out there, let me know, okay?
Well, I probably have more than 3, but I'll narrow it down. My first main priority is we continue the momentum of fixing our water, sewer, and road infrastructure. That was deferred for a long time, which is why we are now having to get millions of dollars in grants and loans, and water and sewer rates are going up. It's expensive, and it went on for too long, and I do not want to see it deferred any longer. My second goal is to make sure that town government is done in a consistent and transparent way. I think it's really important that people understand what are behind the decisions that the trustees make, which is where I want to try to be sure that the agenda packets have as much background information in them and correct. And my third goal is that our code is quite a mess, the town code. It's been done without, changes were made over years without holistically looking at the code. And primarily the land use code, which is, we are putting out a request for proposal to hire a contractor to look at our entire land use code and get land use out of building code and just ensure that our code is up to date, is consistent, and the definitions are correct. And I have to tell you, when I worked for the state of Wyoming, I was an environmental regulator and I wrote rules for the coal and non-coal program for the state of Wyoming, which is what makes me such a stickler about the code being well done, and I don't want to see all the inconsistencies and the questions that come up because of the way the code is written. Thank you.
Okay. Walter?
I think there might be a consensus about the priorities of getting the water and sewer infrastructure taken care of. It's my understanding that there is an engineering study, and when that report is finished and it gives its recommendations to the town council, I'm sure we'll follow up on that. And two, I would like to see the town government be a little more inclusive with more members of the community contributing to it. And I'm a fan of the dark skies thing, and I don't know if, I know we got the designation, but I'm not sure if everything has been implemented with that. But I guess we'll find out, or I'll find out when we get into the council meetings.
Okay. Bill?
Well, I guess I might be part of that like-minded crowd you gotta watch out for. I sponsored the water moratorium that we have today. And I think, given the fact that the only information we actually have about it says that we don't have a lot of water, no matter what the current study comes back with, it's gonna say it's a limited, finite, precious resource. And we don't need to wait for another study to finish up to start dealing with that fact. We need to figure out what we're gonna do. How are we gonna share this? If moving forward, our water system may be unsustainable. It's the most complicated water system in the state, apparently, especially for a town of this size. So we need to get the community involved today to figure out what are we gonna do if it comes back and says, yeah, they're right, you don't have a lot of water. I think encouraging participation is essential. I think a community dialogue, forums, whatever, something to get the community involved in this decision-making process and dealing with this, the likely outcome of this water study are important. And anybody that's making decisions based on an assumption that this water moratorium is going to evaporate in a couple of years is not basing their decisions on data. It may not be that simple. I'm very concerned with the cost of things. I don't know how we're going to work it out, but we need to talk about it and acknowledge the difficulties ahead. And I've been urging a redo of our code for over a decade. So, yeah, there's a lot of consensus on that.
Great, so my 3 priorities, should I be elected as town trustee for the next term, would be definitely infrastructure. That is huge, the water, the sewer, the roads. But connected to that is we still need to make it affordable for our town citizens and residents. And we know that some folks can afford it and some people can't. And what we've started to talk about on council are what are programs that we could tap into so that we could, without pulling from our town budget because we need these resources to make these improvements. Are there things that we could be doing, such like DMEA, they do Operation Roundup on your water bill. And it's enough that maybe some of you do this in the room. It's enough to help increase, to give us a fund so that we can start, we can help offset the bills that if folks can't afford them. There's also resources from the state if they could open it up to towns and municipalities to access those. Another big one for me is communication. I think like that's my priority. Like social media doesn't often succeed for me. I think it can be very divisive and polarizing. So how can we as a town continue to have productive dialogue and communication? And then the third thing is we just had this awesome public study, or this housing study done. We do need to address affordable housing in a way that makes sense for town. And we're starting that process, and I don't have the answers, but I am very much looking forward to participating in that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, second question. We'll start with Walter. What qualifications do you have to effectively serve on the board? What qualifications do you have to effectively serve on the board? Walter?
I don't know, no formal qualifications. I'm just civic-minded, and I'd like to think fair-minded. I think honesty is not only the best policy, I think it's the only acceptable policy. And I sort of would live by those principles. Consensus and dialogue, debate is essential too, because one person doesn't have all the answers. They might have some expertise in one field, but it takes others to form a whole. To address problems, I think you need all points of view to be considered.
Well, I have a long history of involvement with this town board, this town government. It's been a very thorough education. I think I've demonstrated a commitment to honesty and keeping the town government in line over the years, and I look forward to trying to help us move forward on some really difficult issues. And as far as moving forward go, I have to say, I think that the progress we're making now is a natural result of getting some professional help for the town that was resisted tooth and nail by certain members of the last administration for years. So yeah, I think progress can be made, and I'd like to help make it. I think I have sort of an institutional memory that a lot of people don't have here that could be valuable. So.
Okay.
Great. So I think I'm qualified to continue in this trustee position because I've run an organization of a similar size, at least budgetary-wise. I've applied for and received and managed many federal and state grants, and that is going to be key for us as a town to help keep things more affordable. As I mentioned before, I ran SEI as a consensus-based organization. It is very important to me that we move together, that we figure out how to overcome our differences and move forward. If you know me, I'm no drama, I'm no theatrics. I like to just get things done, and let's keep addressing it and moving forward. And I'm not afraid to speak my mind, and I'm going to keep a sense of humor about things. So I think that's important because things can get really serious, and we got to just remember that we're all in this together, that we all love Paonia and we care about its well-being. Thank you.
Let's see, so I feel like I'm qualified to be here because I was a very vocal activist as a citizen. Like I said, I came to every meeting and I spoke up on numerous issues, many of which made some differences to those issues. So I feel like I understand the town, I understand, having been up here as a trustee, I understand meetings and how best to conduct meetings. I'm not gonna be perfect, I may not remember all of Robert's rules, but I'll do my best. But as mayor, I want to see the town move forward, and I think it's really important as mayor that I ensure that all trustees are engaged during the meetings. The trustees have an opportunity to put in their thoughts on the issue, and that when people vote, they are informed on what they're voting on. So with that in mind, I feel like and besides, I love this town, and no, I haven't lived here forever, but I love this town, and it's worth it to me to put the time in to be a public servant. And as I said before, I was a public servant for the state of Wyoming, and regulating coal mining in Wyoming was not an easy thing. So I kind of know how to negotiate some tough situations with a sense of humor and try to look at both sides and get everyone's input, including the public. I think it's really important that people like yourselves have an opportunity to speak up at the meetings. Thank you.
Okay. All right, third question, we'll start with you, Bill. This one's a little bit longer. What would be your method of determining the best needs for the community in alignment with constituent views? Would you vote in alignment with your constituents if you personally opposed the motion? I'll say that again. What would be your method of determining the best needs for the community in alignment with constituents' views? Would you vote in alignment with your constituents if you personally opposed the motion?
I've done that, and I've also voted against some perceptions of what should be happening. It's very difficult to determine the actual feeling of your constituents. I mean, we're a diverse community. You don't get to talk to everybody. As far as how to make decisions go, it's like, my list is kind of like, is this a need or is this a want? If we don't need it and it takes time or money, I'm probably not going to be for it. Is this a proper topic for the board or is this an administrative matter? There's been a lot of blurring of that line in the recent past. Does whatever we're talking about benefit everyone equally? I think this is a very important consideration. If we need it, we've got a list of self-evident priorities in this town. We've got a lot of infrastructure to repair. And does something that people want that we're talking about, does it fit with that list of self-evident priorities? How are we going to pay for it? What's it going to mean cost-wise in the long term? And every penny that this town spends either comes from taxes or adds to the national debt. Okay, and I think we should really keep that in mind as we go forward.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure. So I think in order to, if an issue comes before council, we have to if it's a big issue, we have to have those public forums. So I think it's really good that we have things like TextMyGov so that we can get information out to people to let them know about these community feedback sessions, etc. I think otherwise how are you going to hear from folks if they don't even know what meetings are happening? So I think it's really important that as a board we don't rush things, but we take our time to hear to hear the input and make our decision to the best of our ability. I definitely am not afraid to vote if the constituents are leaning one way and I think it's in the best direction of town, I will vote that way. But I think having all the facts ahead of us, between the financials, the inputs of staff, long-term, does it fit with our plan, all of those are part of our decision making. And I think a good example of that is folks who have been involved with the master planning meeting. We had a really good session on Sunday for land use code, and there'll be many other sessions to just continue to get people's input. And I think those are important for town.
Okay.
I have to say I agree with everything that Bill and Kathy have said. And I have voted against things that the community wanted. And the reason for that is, first and foremost, we have a fiduciary responsibility as elected officials to the town of Paonia. So there were times when there were proposals brought in, and I voted no because, one, we didn't have the staff to make that particular project happen, nor had we budgeted the money to maintain a certain amenity that people did want. So I think this is the other part that I think is so important, and I hope I can do as mayor, is when something is coming to us in an agenda packet, that there is as much information in there as possible so people understand why you can't always have what you want. We have a limited budget, and we have limited staff, and we have our priorities set out, as we've all talked about, and we can only do so much. We are a small town. Our sources of revenue are not infinite. And what I can say is, please buy local, because most of our revenue comes from this 3% sales tax in Paonia. So I guess in summary, I will listen to constituents, of course, because we are representing the people, but I think citizens need to understand that we have to look at multiple facets simultaneously. Thank you.
I would agree with Paige, that it's not an either or, my opinion, or the constituents. Both have to be considered, and along with a lot of other things, to form a decision and set priorities. So every problem is unique, has to be analyzed and debated, and then decided on by, I think, the group of the council as a whole.
All right. Okay, Kathy, we'll start with you on this next question. Strap in, we're going to talk water. You ready? What priority do you place on Paonia's water issues, including the ongoing water tap moratorium? What ideas do you have to help those issues? What priority do you place on Paonia's water issues, including the ongoing water tap moratorium? What ideas do you have to help those issues?
I think it's single-handedly the biggest challenge that we're facing. We have a plan for how we can repair our water system. But Paonia doesn't exist here without really good, clean water. And so I think it's, hands down, it's our single biggest priority that we have, is fixing our water infrastructure. And I'm really excited about the steps that we're taking this year in 2024. The water moratorium, I'm not like, there's been a lot of questions asked, like, well, do you agree with it? Do you not agree with it? I'm like, it just is. Let's wait till the data comes out and let the data help inform our decision. Is it an impacted town? Yes. Is not having enough water impacted town? Yes. So I think as far as how we address it, I think we continue to stick with the plan. We have to make sure that we have enough staff and trustee resources to go after more grants. And we all know grant writing, it takes a lot of time. Grant administration takes a lot of time. And does that mean that we need to look at some additional staffing, et cetera, so that we can go after more grants to help just lighten the burden a bit within the community? So that's
Okay.
I agree. Water right now is our top priority, and I want it to stay that way. It's easy to start seeing shiny things, and I think we have to be very careful. I personally think the moratorium was a great thing, because it takes people getting kind of a whack on the head to literally get something done. And the moratorium made it so that, no, there's no more taps available, and that numerous things go on there. First of all, I think it gives us time to plan. We don't know if we can add more taps after we find out how much water we have, and let me back up. There are three main things to be done, first priority on the water system. One of those is to get meters on the main sections where our springs come in, and if I remember correctly, we have 32 springs. Correct me if that number's wrong, I have trouble keeping track of that in our number of water companies. But we have 32 springs, and each one is different, and we are relying on those springs to serve our water. We don't have meters on those springs. We've got to get them metered. That's going to get done. We have 8,000 feet of pipe, delivery pipe from the upper 2 million gallon tank that is just riddled with holes, constantly dealing with leaks. All that is gonna get replaced. And the third thing that is top priority is our 2 million gallon water tank. The maintenance on that was deferred over the last 8 years, and we have to get in there, take out the food grade lining that's in the tank. There's lead paint in that tank. All the paint has to be removed and repainted. And then and before we can do that, we have to get a second tank up there so that the water from our only treatment plant that's running can fill a tank and service everyone. So I'll just in summary say, water is number one, and without the moratorium, I don't think we would be here today doing what we plan to do.
Walter?
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with any of that. And what I know about the water system has already been mentioned about taking care of the sources and the delivery system. I understand needs a lot of attention, and those things will have to be ordered in the order of their priority need. And it's sort of goes without saying, you can't have infinite growth with finite resources. So we really do have to be mindful of the amount that we have and use it wisely. Taking care of the leaks of the delivery system, I thought was one of the things that was one of the most important things that we need to look into.
Bill?
I love his brief answers. I wish I could do that. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what's being done to address the moratorium. In my view, what's being done is pretty much like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Of the stuff that's happening now, there's two things that I'm aware of that actually address the moratorium. One is reworking springs, and the other is fixing leaks. Okay, when these studies were done, the springs were in good shape, and there was some data on how much water was coming out of them. So I don't think cleaning the springs is going to get a significant source of water beyond what these studies dealt with. The other thing is fixing leaks. All water systems leaks. We're never going to get to zero. Ours leaks a bunch. We can work on it all day long. Maybe we're going to get 100 or 150 taps worth of water out of fixing our leaks. We have roughly 2,000 taps. So 100 taps is 5% of our demand. That's barely within the margin of error for studies on municipal water systems. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room in there that is going to bail us out on this. One of the reasons that our water pipes are so full of holes is that there's been a lack of oversight going back forever from this town government. The contractors that put that pipeline in, it was steel pipe with a coating to prevent rust, and they used chains to lift it around and put it in the ground. Those chains busted holes in the coating, and now those holes are all full of rust and it leaks. Oversight's really important in whatever we do going forward. But yeah, we have to deal with this, and we don't need to wait for the results of a study that we're waiting for the grant, which is held up by our audit not being done, to get the meters to put on the springs so we can start the study. It's like, we need to do something. We don't need to wait for that.
Okay. All right, Paige, we'll go back to you. Question 5, in your opinion, what is the best strategy for responsible community growth for Paonia? In your opinion, what is the best strategy for responsible community growth for Paonia?
Again, it goes to water. We can't add more people if we don't have the water to serve them. So water is number one. It's possible after we get meters on the springs and we start getting better handle on how much water is coming out of those springs and how much usage we have by the customers, we may not be able to provide more taps. There is no guarantee that we have a lot more water available that we aren't already supplying. So I think that is first and foremost. Probably the other thing I would think about is our town is only 0.85 square miles. 8/10 of a square mile in this little town itself. And I just think we have to keep in mind that people like this small, funky town. And yes, I agree that we need to add some more housing, and I think ADUs are probably a good way to start. But I think we have to be very careful about what we allow to start filling in properties like mine. We have a property with 3 lots, and the ADU could easily go on one of those lots. But I want to be sure that what I put there matches the character of this town. So that is actually a upcoming town forum on short-term rentals and ADUs, and I can't remember the date, it's next week. What is it?
Maybe the 13th.
I think the 13th. But that's one of those things, we want people to come in and talk to us, give us their thoughts, ask the questions they want answered in order for this town to grow. And again, I think growth is relative. This little town probably can't absorb a whole lot more people, but certainly we want to allow people to come here if they want to, and we need to allow people the ability to stay here. Those people who have lived here that we don't, we make it possible for them to stay at their homes. Thank you.
Walter?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mistake to assume that growth is imperative. I mean, who says we need to grow? I mean, the economy and people who are just focused strictly on the economy always want growth. Businesses always want growth. But like Paige says, the town is only so large, can only accommodate a certain population, and we need to have the resources in order to serve that population. And if we come to the limit of those resources, I think it's a mistake to think that we can just grow in spite of that.
Okay. Bill?
Well, I think that it's not really necessarily up to the town how the town grows. I think the water obviously is very important. I think that the ADUs, the way I read the moratorium, would be an increase in the load on the system and therefore not allowed by the moratorium. The problem with just limiting growth is that you got supply and demand. And we've already got a really healthy dose of gentrification going on here. And I think that our studies going on right now should be addressing this directly. I'm only half joking when I say that I'm tempted to put a junk car upside down in my front yard as a counter to gentrification. I'm not going to do that. If I did, it would be a piece of art that I would build from scratch. But I think the job of the town is to provide a set of rules and a level playing field and let everybody else work it out. And I think there's a real confusion in the last few years about the difference in the role of the Chamber of Commerce versus the town government. I think the town government, when it starts promoting things like tourism, is only serving a part of the community. And it's a tough one.
Kathy?
Okay, so when I look at responsible community growth, I'm really excited about our 20-year master plan that's happening, because it is involving so much community feedback about where we should be going as a community. And I think it's also balancing a number of things. So for example, conservation, or urban farms, and I also want us to encourage, like, I want the town to have policies in place to help encourage business. And that includes light manufacturing. If I look back, when I first moved to Paonia, we had Chaco, we had the mines, we had a lot of really good paying jobs that allowed folks to stay in this community. And I think that there is a role for government to help encourage, and this would be through public-private partnerships, working with One Delta County, et cetera. So I think that it is part of our role as a government to help encourage things by having fair and consistently applied codes and standards and all of that. Because I want to be able to support the folks who live here. And all of that is under that umbrella of having the infrastructure to support that as well, as has been previously mentioned. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so Walter, starting with you. What are the town of Paonia's biggest weaknesses that need to be addressed? Maybe we'll skip the water part. We talk
Say
about
water.
water.
When I first mentioned to some friends of mine that I was going to throw my hat in the ring for town council, they said, first thing they said is, I have a pothole in front of my house. And I said, well, maybe we could have a program like Adopt a Highway. You could adopt a pothole. Saying in jest, but that is one of the issues, the streets, as well as the water and sewer that needs to be addressed in the town.
Yep. Yep.
I seriously, if I wind up on the board, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna suggest that the board meets for an hour before every meeting, weather permitting, and fills a freaking pothole. That I think this would foster an awareness of the problem and would start focusing on that. It's another very expensive proposition to fix our streets. Yeah, I think, you know, we've got a bunch of weaknesses. It's sorry to be negative, but our board has fostered a paralysis of decorum in our meetings, I think, as in an effort to stifle criticism and debate. I really want to see that change. These signs are exactly an example of that. Those should be facing this board if they're going to remain in this room, not the audience. We've got a real aversion to accountability. We've like I say, we're surging forward after we've gotten some professional help. We've had people lie horribly about the condition of our infrastructure. We had people that bailed out with our infrastructure in a state of collapse. We're still dealing with a bookkeeper that was keeping 2 sets of books. And I won't say there's a cover-up about this, but there is a sad lack of emphasis on what's going on here. And we need an investigation into some of these things, particularly this business with the books. This isn't something in the past that we need to forget and move on. This is happening today. One of the grants that's held up by the fallout from the steal of the books is the grant to put the meters on the springs. This is now. So yeah, there's some issues that I'd help address.
Okay.
Okay, so I think the biggest issue that we're facing right now is staffing. We've been in transition for a long time, and we now have a really professional and very competent town administrator, the whole staff from Public Works to our police department. We're catching up right now, and that's a challenge. Like, I'm definitely, like myself and the trustees, we've been very concerned about workload to make sure that we don't burn people out, because now that we have good folks, let's make sure that we can keep them. So we definitely are in catch-up mode right now, and that includes with the audit. I think that there's also, like, how do I want to say this? We have to keep looking forward. We can spend so much time hammering on the past, what didn't work. And yes, we have to question that, but there's at some point that we have to just keep looking forward and say, what can we be doing? What can we be doing now? And not talk about what happened in the 80s, etc. And then finally, communication. I think communication is key. I think it's key for the audience to also be respectful to folks. I think as trustees, we try to be respectful for the audience, and we ask the same of people who come, to just also be respectful, knowing that this is public service. And we trustees, I don't know if folks know, we make $100 a month as its role. The mayor makes $200 a month. And it is, if we want more people to be involved in the town, there has to be a mutual two-way respect.
So you're saying we're not in it for the money?
Yeah.
Okay, Paige.
All right, I'm gonna go back to infrastructure, because the other weakness that I'm quite worried about is the sewer running in the alleys behind our houses. Those sewers have outlived their life In many cases, they're the old clay pipe. And we're having breaks happen, and when you have to go in and do an emergency repair on those sewers, it costs twice as much as if you were just going in and replacing them when it's not under duress. So that's another area of our infrastructure I think we have to start dealing with. And again, start looking for grants and loans to start doing that simultaneously. And one other weakness that I will bring up that was a sort of a pet peeve of mine is that in the past, the trustees did not go see every one of the infrastructure, the buildings, the plants, the water plant, the sewer plant, the town hall, where Public Works is. There was no impetus to get the trustees to see exactly what it is we're responsible for, because ultimately we are responsible for it. We depend on the staff to care for it, but we are ultimately responsible. So there is a new ordinance which says trustees must see all of the infrastructure. And as mayor, I can't make people do anything, but I'm going to strongly encourage that everyone get on those tours. Because I've been to several places several times, and it is amazing to actually see these places. And these are usually open, they are open to the public. They are noticed, so the citizens can come and see how the water plants work. I mean, they're unbelievable. So, thank you.
Okay. All right, Bill, we'll start with you on the next one. What would you want Paonia to be 10 years from now? What would you want Paonia to be 10 years from now?
I'll look at it first. I'd like to see it to be a place that I still want to live. I mean, I've heard this called the last best place. I hope it's still the best place. It's beautiful. I love it. I'm not going any place.
When I first looked at moving to Paonia, I heard that Sweet Sunny South song. You can't always get what you want, but you can, something about always get what you need in downtown Paonia. I hope that it continues to be like that, where we can get what we need in downtown Paonia, but not the things that you want. Because in my mind, that says we have a thriving downtown, we have a hardware store, you have a place you can get your chicken feed, your seeds, your plants, you can get local food, but you're not gonna be able to buy your big screen TV downtown Paonia. I think that, to me, that's something that I've loved about Paonia. I want us to, 10 years from now, continue to have clean, drinkable water. I want us to continue to have parks that people can go to in green spaces and conserve lands. And yeah, a good sewer system, I'd take that in 10 years, that would be great. Let's not discount that. Okay, that's what I'd like in 10 years.
So what I'd like to see in 10 years, really a lot of what we have already. This wonderful, cute downtown with diverse shops and restaurants. I really like it to look the same way it does, honestly. But again, I'd like to be able to turn on my tap and know I'm gonna have water and I can flush my toilet. It's not gonna come back in my house. And the other thing I would like to see in 10 years is a lot of new trees that have been planted to replace the ones that are super old, like Town Park. A lot of the street trees are very old. They're gonna have to come down soon, and I wanna see underplanting done all around. And the last thing I'd like to see are beautiful planters throughout Grand Avenue with flowers. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that drew me to Paonia was it's more ephemeral. It's the spirit or the feeling you get. It's a little hippie to say vibes, but that's what it was. When I was considering retiring, my wife and I traveled around several states, and it's amazing how after spending just a few days in some towns, you get a feeling that's like, this isn't it, this is uncomfortable, and it is not something you can put your finger on directly, but it is a spirit of a town, or the personality of the town. And when we were looking around, I kind of joked about it. I said, well, we want to find a town that is like Paonia. And finally said, let's just go to Paonia. So that's how I wound up here, because the town vibes, the way it feels.
Who did we start with? I'm sorry.
Bill's
Bill, we did. I'm old enough to remember visiting my grandparents down in Delta and using an outhouse. So we don't want to bring that up.
No.
Okay, we did have a last minute question from the audience. If you had complete freedom to rewrite one section of town code, what would you change? If you had complete freedom to rewrite one section of town code, what would you change, Kathy?
That is a great question.
It is.
And I'm sorry, but my mind has gone blank right now. So I'm
I don't
gonna.
want to play the Jeopardy music.
Yeah. So, yeah, I will tell you that I have some more learning to do when it comes to diving into the town code. That's just part of my learning that I have to do. So I'm not gonna answer that question yet. But I am really happy to hear that we are going to be rewriting.
It's hard
R's
to
and
say
W's
that
are
it's
tough
addressed.
words. Yes, rewriting the town code and
Okay.
just making it so it's very consistent.
Okay, Paige?
I would like to see the part of the land use code regarding putting residential into our C1 and C2. Right now it is very confusing as to whether you can do that by right or if you have to have a special review. And I think it's really important that get clarified as to what exactly the town and the citizens want.
Okay.
I'm afraid I'm in the same boat as Kathy in that I'd have to read through the town code first before I can decide what needs replacing. I know a few or not enough details about it to decide what it is that I would change.
Well, maybe bring the gong when I've said enough. But I would start with the town's water ordinance. Okay, so today we have an ordinance that says if you have a tap and you put in an additional dwelling unit, you have to have an additional water meter. But you don't have to pay for that water meter. I think that's crazy. If you're gonna put in another dwelling unit, you need to pay another tap fee. It may not be a complete tap fee. I think our tap fees are too low, but I think there has to be some kind of an additional ante for any additional dwelling unit that you put on the town water system. This is just self-evident to me. We have a line in our zoning code. Most zoning codes say you can't cover more than like 30% of your lot with a non-permeable surface. So when you have a cloud burst, it doesn't all run off into your neighbor's yard. Well, we have our code says that you have to cover at least 60 or 70% of your lot with a building. And we've known this for years and nobody's ever changed it. I went to the mat with the town board and did a citizens initiative to change the town ordinance so that trustees had unfettered access to all the records of the town. I mean, they're fiduciaries for the town. They're responsible for everything that happens. And that, I negotiated with the town to keep it from going to a vote. There were some problems with the way I wrote it. Although I did ask the town to help me write it before I circulated it. And then they didn't like what I had circulated, but they wouldn't help me do it. But in the fray, I missed the fact, shame on me, that the lawyer changed it to say that the trustees have the same access to town information as a citizen has by going through a CORA process, the Freedom of Information Act. And this is crazy. Trustees cannot use CORA. If it goes to the map, they'd be suing themselves to get the information from the town. I would change it so that trustees can see all the town records and all the town facilities. It also wound up being that trustees have to give, at this point it was a big deal, the town administrator and staff several days to clean up the mess before they're allowed to tour a facility. I don't know. I'm sure I've used up my time.
I really hate to interrupt. I think you're right. But That's time. Okay, so starting with Kathy and going to the left, your 1 minute closing statement.
Yeah, my 1 minute closing statement is that, one, I want everybody, I hope that everybody who is a resident of town votes. It's so important that we engage in democracy. And when everything, in my opinion, feels a little chaotic at the federal and international level, local politics is where we can have a direct impact. And I encourage you, one, to vote, to become involved in public service. We need more people who care about this town and where we're going. And yeah, and I look forward to, you probably won't see me much on Facebook. That's not how I'm gonna communicate with folks. I'm gonna be out talking to people. And if you have any questions, I have my town email. You're welcome to email me, etc. And thank you all for coming tonight. And thanks DCI for having us.
Yeah. Thank you. Bill?
I want to thank Walter and Linda, who's not here, for stepping forward to enter this race, because without them, we probably wouldn't even be having this forum, and we wouldn't be able to talk to you. I am very happy that Paige is going to be the mayor. I think she's going to be really good as a mayor. She's very well suited for the role. And in the end, this isn't about me versus anybody else or them versus me. This is about you, the voters. It's like, how are you going to become informed enough to make a vote that counts for what you really want and not just be a rubber stamp for your tribe? Town government is democracy 101. We're in trouble. This is where we can grab a hold and make a difference.
Thank you, Bill. Walter?
Yeah, I think it's good to keep in mind that everybody has like two spheres of their existence. There's the private and the public, and you really need to participate in your community. And that was one of the things that I felt strongly about. I think we've had in our culture too much emphasis on that rugged individualism and competition and just economic striving, where it's the public sphere that actually makes the private sphere possible. So we need to support and be a part of that public sphere.
Okay, Paige?
Hi, well, I'm the only one with the luxury of knowing I'm gonna be back here on April 8th with a gavel. Oh my gosh. So, I really, first of all, I appreciate that everyone is here tonight and people are having an opportunity to watch and catch it on YouTube. And thank you again to the Delta County Independent and all three of you to be here. So my message is, please stay engaged. Come to the meetings. My phone number is on the website. Please don't hesitate to give me a call. And, I've never been a mayor before, so let me know if I'm messing up. Please, because I'm not in it for me. This is for everyone. I'm here because I love this town and I want it to work and I want it to get, have what we can't see improved, everything under the ground and the trees. So please, we're all in this together. I have no ulterior motive other than this town to operate and continue into perpetuity. And let's every day set the stage for it to work better. So thank you.
Okay.
I submitted a question before the meeting. Why did you not read it? Me too.
I don't have it.
I gave it to Lucas.
Lucas?
We got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Time's up.
Time.
I thought everybody wanted better communication and
Okay.
participation.
Let's do it. You guys want to do 2 more?
Whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Stand and deliver.
I'm fine.
It's a long question.
Okay. Can Can we hold the answers to a minute so we can get rolling? Would that be okay? Okay. We'll start with Paige.
Oh, boy.
It is my observation that many current trustees and staff generally either don't understand or willfully fail to abide by their oath to uphold the United States Constitution. How will you correct that?
I'm not sure I can answer that. We all take an oath of office to the Constitution of the United States, Colorado, and the laws of the town of Paonia. So I suppose as mayor, if I see something untoward going on during a meeting, I have the ability to call for a point of order, I believe. But I as a mayor or any elected official, if someone is doing something on their own personal time, that's doesn't violate the open meetings law or public records, I don't know what I could do about it.
Okay.
Yeah, there will always be differences of opinion, and debate is helpful, but argument isn't. And if somebody is breaking the law, there isn't much question about that person should be held accountable.
Yeah, I think basic accountability. The term trustee, I believe, comes from the fiduciary duty, the fiduciary trustee of the public money and the public trust. And I think part of that fiduciary duty is that the trustees don't have the moral or legal authority to look the other way and say bygones when something's not going right. I don't know. It's a tough one. You can't control other people's behavior.
Yeah, I'm gonna just echo what my fellow colleagues up here, candidates, thank you, have stated. Yeah, it's our job to hold people accountable. Yeah, and to, whether that's in executive session, et cetera, if something is being violated, it's our obligation to speak up. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. So I'm a little confused. I got two questions here. Sorry, I'm a little confused in the second one. Walter, I'll start with you, I guess.
Good.
First question is, what is your opinion of the use of the town logo on campaign flyer mailed to town voters?
It was an effort to promote somebody who was a write-in candidate. So I was contacted, and I think, and I would hope, most people would be smart enough to recognize that is not the town letterhead. It is the logo the town uses, and I would guess that it's not really copyrighted or registered. And if it is, then that was a mistake. And whoever, mistakes get made. It didn't seem like a serious mistake, and it certainly didn't seem to me that it was or could be mistaken for the town letterhead as it was accused of being.
Okay, Bill?
I have to be careful what I say. This is pretty much aimed at me, I think. I think that it's pretty cheeky. And to be completely honest, I think it shows a sense of entitlement and it's beyond the logo. When I go through the list of points here, I have to question how much responsibility the people that put this out can actually claim for these things. And I also have to respond to the implication that I understand has been going around, that I'm going to somehow derail this stuff. Most of these things I've been advocating about for years. They've been the source of my outbursts in the town meetings, if you want to get down to that. I don't know, I think I've said enough.
Okay, Kathy?
So yeah, my name is on this flyer. I was involved with the creation of the flyer. It was a completely honest got a mistake, nothing ill intention about it. We messed up by putting that logo on there. And I'm thankful that the town released a statement about it. I stand by everything that's stated in the flyer, but putting the logo on was a mistake.
Can I see the flyer?
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Paige.
ready for
Oh,
me?
can I share?
Oh, yeah.
So,
I didn't-
I'll give it back to you.
I think the point from the town's perspective is that they can't look like they're endorsing candidates, and by putting on the Paonia logo, gave that impression. But I chalk it up to people who do not understand voting law. It's very particular what you can and can't do as a candidate, and I don't know if, I am not doing any campaigning because I'm running unopposed. So I did not go through campaign laws or anything, but I kind of saw it as an honest mistake. And I was sorry that the town had to do a statement, but the town absolutely had to do a statement because it looks, if people get the perception that the town of Paonia is endorsing candidates, that is not democratic. And you'll notice there was no one from the town of Paonia here. The town of Paonia is not offering up its audio-visual system, etc., just the hall. So those are my thoughts.
All right, so we'll go ahead and do this last question. Okay. What is your opinion of the claims made on the flyer by endorsing candidates that were responsible for 10 million water investment, addressing housing shortage, launching master plan, applying for grants, etc., when none of these endorsing candidates had anything to do with the above? Bill, we'll start with you.
I've already said something about that.
Okay. Kathy?
Yeah, so when we wrote this flyer, when the flyer was made, it wasn't us saying we're claiming we did all this. That's completely not at all the fact. We as a collective, the town, we as the trustees, we are doing these things, we're moving forward. So, yeah, it wasn't us saying that we did this, because that's not true. It's saying that we collectively are moving forward with that.
Okay. Paige?
My turn. I didn't take as much umbrage at it that the three people were claiming they had done all this. I saw it as these are the things that are going on that are really positive. But in hindsight, a little better wordsmithing perhaps would have alleviated people's perception.
Okay, Walter?
I think people can be easily misunderstood, especially when you've got a bias to start with or a prejudice to start with. And it was, as Kathy said, it was to enumerate and put bullet points on what is happening now that we endorsed, what was going on with the town, and we wanted to keep that momentum going. I sort of saw the draft of the flyer, and I too am not a campaign expert, although I did get the little packet that has that, it's 30 or 40 pages of legalese about campaigning, and it all is, like I said, it's legalese. You almost have to have a lawyer to interpret it for you. But it was an innocent mistake.
Can I reclaim a moment of my time?
Sure.
You said
The
no.
other thing I want to say about that list is, like I say, a lot of what the town is springing forward with now is a natural result of getting some competent help. And it's not that I agree with everything that's being done, but it's competent help now. And actually, when you go down that list, a lot of those things are administrative issues that are properly handled by professional administrators. And they're really not stuff that the board is supposed to be all that involved in. So just a little point of education for everybody there.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, you know what? Those ended up being good questions.
A lot of questions.
Yeah. So we appreciate that. So closing, we want to thank again the town of Paonia. I personally want to thank Lucas for doing all the legwork to getting this done. And
Thank you all.
we want to thank you for attending.
Thank you, DCI.
You bet. Thank you for attending. And then most of all, thank you again for stepping out. As we saw the last two questions, it can get heated. We're not getting paid very much. We appreciate you stepping out and serving your community.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Well,
very
Walter,
much.
we might have some fun together.